Orlando's looking to get a little more French. Ricardo Pepi's deal to Fulham is off again. The USL player protest double on the weekend, and we talked to Brian of Fort Wayne Footy about covering the new USL League One team. That and more on a Jason-only edition of Morning Kickaround. Hello and welcome, everybody. You're watching Morning Kickaround here on a Monday. Jason Davis here by myself. We cover soccer from the bottom up in America, from America, with an American view on everything happening in the world's most beautiful game. We obviously come to you Monday, Wednesday, Friday, right here on the YouTube channel. You'll notice, again, it's just Jason by myself. And we'll make it through together. Help me out. I see we've got a lot of people in the chat already. All of our ultras posting up. A homeless shoe is here. Patrick is here. Ryan is here. Speaking of Fort Wayne, Ryan is here. Armando is here. Jeff of Newport News, Virginia. I got that right, Jeff? He's here. Felix is here. That's how we say that, right? John is here. Bill is here as well. Oh, Jeff is in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Okay. Sorry, Jeff, if I got that wrong. Maybe that's your handle is giving me the wrong information there. Michael is here. Angus. Oh, I already, Mad Pup, you got on there too. And Angus is here. Yes, it is a Rob-less show for anybody wondering. Rob had other business to take care of today, but that's okay. We've got a big show for you. As I just mentioned off the top, there's a big transfer potentially coming to Major League Soccer. We got a transfer to American International that seems to be on and off and on and off again. We've got the USL player protests, which we definitely should address again as they continue, as that CBA negotiation process continues between the USL Players Association and the USL. Plus, as I mentioned, Brian from Fort Wayne Footy is going to join us to talk about Fort Wayne FC and their life in USL League One so far, just a couple of weeks into playing competitive matches as a professional soccer team. That's coming up on the show, and a little bit of a soccer under construction, a little tease on something happening up in Rob and Jenny's neck of the woods in Grand Rapids. We'll catch you up there. Reminder that you can always help out the show, first of all, by subscribing. Like, that's the number one thing you can do. Subscribe, like the video. Like, I think that helps. There's like hyping and things on YouTube. Half this stuff I don't even know about, but I know if you like the video and if you subscribe to the channel, that helps. You can also become a member. Everybody who just got on screen is an ultra. That's the membership scheme here at Morning Kickaround. You become an ultra, you get access to our Discord, which is just humming along with a ton of conversation about American soccer and other things. You get access to bonus content. You get access to all kinds of different things that we're doing here on Morning Kickaround. I should remind you that we have a store. There are a couple of products on the YouTube channel. For whatever reason, the YouTube channel is not showing everything I would like it to show. So the best thing to do is to look through our posts and find the link to the jersey, the Morning Kickaround jersey, which let's mention this. Pre-sale for the jersey is going to close on Wednesday. Now, after that, we'll be able to get you a jersey if you want one as you order them. But the initial batch of jerseys is going to go into production by the end of the week. And so if you want to be in that initial batch, if you want to get your jersey, do that now. Go to Fourth Wall or look for Morning Kickaround on Fourth Wall, and you'll find the jersey. Again, the link should be in the posts on the YouTube channel. That's the best way to support the show right now beyond becoming a member is go buy our brand new kit that's coming out. I have a question in the chat. Matt, we've talked about this. You're going to be an ultra at some point. This is an Atlantic City FC, ACFC jersey that they sent me a couple years back. So if you're wondering about the jersey I'm wearing today, that is what that is. I'm sure I'm hyping up something else. We're going to be going to Rhode Island in May. Stay tuned for that. Pawtucket, Rhode Island FC. May 9th is the broadcast from the stadium in Rhode Island. Very excited for that. That's something that you can put on your calendar and obviously support us there. Reminder that if you become an ultra or you throw us a little cash, it helps the show. We're trying to build this thing out. We got big plans. The future of the show is very bright, but requires a little bit of help from you to make that work. All right, I think I've babbled enough. I think we got to get into the meat of this thing. Let's hit our long balls here on Monday's Morning Kickaround. Big news out of Florida today, actually reported by Paul Tenorio, Tom Bogert, and Mario Cortahana over at The Athletic first, and we picked up by other sources as well. It looks like the deal that was teased a couple weeks ago, and then we heard out of Madrid that actually Antoine Griezmann wanted to stay with Atletico Madrid, and he signed a deal, and he was all committed to being a Rey Blanco for a little while longer. That has now been apparently upended by the news reported by Tenorio, Bogert, and Cortahana that Antoine Griezmann is coming to Major League Soccer. He was authorized, per the reporting at The Athletic, to fly to Orlando during his 2 scheduled days off to complete a deal to join Orlando City this summer. This obviously comes right after the Madrid derby, which, much to my chagrin as an Atletico fan, Atletico managed to lose to Real Madrid at the Bernabeu, but that's not the story. The story is that Griezmann will be signed through 2027-28, the first full season of Major League Soccer operating on a calendar aligned with the European calendar. He'll have an option for 2028-29, and in a little bit of an extra bit of detail, he's going to inherit the number 7 shirt. Okay, well, that makes sense, I guess. This is a club that's had some fairly big names, right? Kaká was the original big name signed to Orlando City when they became an MLS team after their period of USL participation. If you remember the early days of Orlando City, and they had Kaká, they had Nani for a while. I'm trying to remember if there's any other significant names outside of those two. I mean, players that have been Champions League level players, and I'm not sure that there are. This is the end of a weeks-long negotiation with Orlando. They had initially hoped to get him during this MLS primary window, which I think actually just closed. And that's really the rub here, is that initially it was they're going to try to get him before the MLS window closes. That would obviously mean leaving Atletico Madrid before the end of their Champions League run. And right now they're kind of in a fight to make sure that they're top 4. They've got a gap between themselves, 3rd place, and the 4th place team in La Liga. So I expect that that'll be fairly simple for them to hold on to a top 4 spot. But that was the idea, was that Orlando was going to get in on Antoine Griezmann before the end of the MLS primary transfer window, which will obviously give him more time to impact the season. But getting him in the summer is still a significant move. Now, this is also interesting because obviously Orlando just fired their manager, right? They just fired Oscar Pareja, who had been the only manager to take Orlando City to the playoffs during their MLS history. He is not going to fix all of Orlando City's problems. Now, he is a plus defender from the front of the formation. He's not a liability as a defender. So that is that's a reasonable element of signing a player. So if you sign a player who's at this point in their career with a deep European history, and he's going to stand around and wait for the ball, or maybe make a couple of attacking runs, but not do any work defensively, that's going to be a liability in Major League Soccer. And that's going to be a liability for this particular team. But if Griezmann comes with an effort level that allows them to use him both as obviously an incredible attacking weapon and a player who can create things for his teammates, and also as a defender from the front of the formation, then obviously that would be that makes this deal a little bit better. Now, Griezmann is no longer a French international, so that's not a factor here. He's not going to be in the World Cup this summer. So this is simply a matter of him waiting out the rest, or playing out rather, the rest of the Atleti season, and then joining Orlando City. I don't know. Again, I don't know that this fixes everything, but this can be a boost to the club in a couple of different ways. Again, just in terms of his quality. He's an incredible player, and he's going to make them somewhat better. He doesn't fix all their problems, and obviously he's going to sell some shirts and get some attention. I'm a big Antoine Griezmann fan, huge Antoine Griezmann fan. So I'm happy to see him play in Major League Soccer no matter what the situation is. But we will see if maybe this is the kind of player that fixes a problem for this club, because they have more than this. They replaced the entire back line. Defensively, they are a bit of a mess. Antoine Griezmann to Major League Soccer. Haven't seen a number in terms of what he would be paid, but you have to imagine it'll be significant. There is obviously also, I think for MLS fans, always this concern that a club is going to go do something flashy that is going to draw attention away from the fact that they haven't built the roster in a way that allows them to be truly successful and win championships. And Antoine Griezmann doesn't help Orlando City win a championship this year. They're not going to be good enough, even with Griezmann, to win a championship this year. We will see what happens next season. Maybe once he gets ready for the first, full calendar year of MLS playing on the European calendar, how that affects all of these things. All right, so that's one bit of transfer news here on Morning Kickaround. The other bit of transfer news is Ricardo Pepi back in the news. Now, we had heard that the deal that was on and then off was back on again to send him to Fulham this summer. Remember, Fulham made a bid for Ricardo Pepi in the winter. PSV Eindhoven said, we don't have enough time to replace him, so we're not going to accept this bid. I don't know if they were close on valuation, but the news at the moment is that the deal that was supposed to be ready for the summer, $42 million for the kid from Texas to go from PSV Eindhoven to Fulham, is now off again, which is a little bit disappointing. I'm not gonna suggest otherwise, both as somebody who supports Fulham, but also somebody who supports the U.S. men's national team. To see Ricardo Pepi get his opportunity at a club like Fulham is exciting. Now, I've said this in other forums, probably not on this show. The way Fulham is set up, the kind of players they have around him, and you look at the goal scoring numbers for players like Raul Jimenez at Fulham, he's not going to get more than a handful of goals over double digits. Ricardo Pepi's not going to go to Fulham and score 20 goals. And that's about Ricardo Pepi, but it's also about Fulham. They are not a team that's going to get their top scorer that kind of number. So, scoring 10 goals in the Premier League is more impressive than scoring 20 goals in the Eredivisie, in my mind. How will that play out for his international career? Does it make him a better player? I think there is a significant question. Now, again, this deal is off for the moment. Here's what Goal.com is reporting. PSV and Fulham agreed on the framework of a transfer this week, with the proposed deal being close enough for Pepi to undergo a medical in England, which reporting is that he passed that medical. However, there were disagreements over details at the final hurdle. The hiccup came down to whether or not the deal would be completed now or in the summer after the World Cup. And some of the reporting suggests that Fulham basically said, we don't want to sign him now and have this announced and have this confirmed and have this guaranteed and have us committed if he suffers an injury. We want the option to pull out of the deal if Ricardo Pepi is injured, either before the end of the European season or during the World Cup. And there is a quote here from Ernie Stewart, former U.S. international, now the guy who runs PSV Eindhoven as their sporting director. Quote, in the end, no agreement was reached on the moment when responsibility for the player would be transferred. We were already in talks with Fulham during the winter break when they made their move just before the transfer window closed. At that point, we couldn't bring in a replacement anymore, so the transfer couldn't go through. But a week later, we resumed discussions and the process got underway again. That issue of responsibility for the player is a very important deal throughout. We did get a bit closer on it, but in the end, we were still too far apart. He also reports, does Ernie Stewart, that Ricardo really wanted the move. It's mainly a frustrating situation for Ricardo. Of course, we're happy to keep a good striker at the club. We'll have to discuss this with Peter Bosch. Peter Bosch will have to discuss with Ricardo what's going down now. Look, Ricardo Pepi, I've said this before, he's a very talented in-product goal scorer. He doesn't do a lot otherwise. He's not going to bring his teammates in to play. He's not a back-to-goal kind of guy. He doesn't do a ton he's not a great presser from the front. He's not going to do a ton that is beyond he gets on the end of things and puts them in the net. Now, there's value there. Is it $42 million worth of value? Like, that's a question I don't have the answer to. And we're going to see. I think, obviously, teams are willing to pay what seems like inflated numbers for anybody who can put the ball in the net. 13 goals and 27 appearances in all comps for Ricardo Pepi this season. He's had the injury problems. That arm thing, that is such a weird situation. And I always feel bad for a player who picks up injuries that don't seem to be connected to one another. If you are a player who consistently gets hamstring injuries. Well, then you're prone to hamstring injuries, and that should be a red flag for anybody who might want to sign you. But if you're a player who, you have a knee injury, and then your next injury is an arm injury, and then you have a separated shoulder or whatever it might be, a foot injury, and these things do not seem to be connected to one another in terms of body part or the way that you play, that's unfortunate that you might get labeled as injury prone. And I don't know if Ricardo Pepi carries that. Obviously, if Fulham's willing to spend $42 million on him, they don't see that as an issue. I wonder, though, of course, how much Fulham's ownership, being American, plays into the idea of signing Ricardo Pepi. And you look around Europe, there are other players, maybe not scoring at the exact same level as Ricardo Pepi, but players of his age and profile who Fulham could go after. And yet here they are looking perhaps at an American. And I'm not saying that they're citing him just because he's American, but there has to be some consideration of the marketability of a player in addition to what he might do for you on the field when you're a club like Fulham who needs every single dollar you can get so you can spend more on your product to try to do more in the Premier League, right? Fulham is stuck right now as a mid-table Premier League club, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that when a couple of years ago you were in the Championship. Being established as a Premier League club for more than a couple seasons is an achievement for a club like Fulham. And yet, every Fulham fan will want the club to spend more and level up and do something bigger than what they've already done. Get back to Europe would be nice. Does Ricardo Pepi help Fulham get back to Europe? Does he do that more than Rodrigo Muniz? Does he do that more than Raul Jimenez? Those are the questions I think that you're asking yourself if you're a Fulham fan and you're watching your club potentially spend $42 million. But for the moment, deal off. Goal.com says it's not dead, that there's a stall in the talks, and they're going to try to continue to work on when responsibility for the player might be transferred, as Ernie Stewart outlined. Okay, let's do this. Let's set this up. USL, another week of no CBA agreement. We're going to call this a hot topic here on Morning Kickaround. The USL players going back to protest again on the weekend. All right, we're back here on Morning Kickaround. Another weekend, another week of USL Championship play with no CBA agreed between the USL and the USL Players Association. Now, we've had no fundamental updates on where negotiations are. I think for the most part, at least publicly, it's a holding pattern. We're just kind of watching from afar and waiting for that news to come out that they've taken some step forward. And we've seen that in terms of money and salaries, maybe they're a little closer than they were. There's still the hang up on the medical insurance issue and things of that nature. So with no CBA and with 2 weeks of play already in the books, the USL players decided again to protest. Now, they did take their protest up a notch. They did escalate their protest a little bit. And the way that they did that was, instead of just the 1 minute of stillness, of no play at the start of the game with the opening whistle, they did it again, the opening the second half. Basically repeating the whole process of not playing once the whistle is blown to start a half. I'm seeing reports from across the league about this. Obviously, with broadcasts, there's always a question of how the league, who is ultimately handling these things, how they manage this. So you've got a bunch of situations with awkward, hey, let's go to the fans. Let's see if we can get away from the players who aren't playing. So, that is something of a credit to the players, that they are getting attention, or it's very obvious that these broadcasts are trying to figure out a way to avoid showing the players not moving after the whistle has blown. But I'm very questionable as to whether or not this is enough and whether they are going to get the attention they really need. Now, again, there are already fans who are on board with the players. and 100% back the players and don't need to be encouraged more to back the players. They show up, they hold up signs, or they chant stand up for standards, and that stuff is there and established, and I guess you could argue it continues to have some impact. But I would say that at this point, this escalation, and we've talked about like how hard is it to kind of coordinate a protest like this? You do it at the start of the game, and now you do it at the start of the second half because everybody's on the same page. It's very easy to tell the players, okay, this is what we're going to do. Nobody move for the first minute. Everybody can see the clock. Everybody hears the whistle. Everybody can see the clock. Everybody knows their job. Don't move for the first minute of play, first half and second half. Because we've had some suggestions, and I see a couple from our ultras, and I'll get to those, of, the players should stop in the middle of the half, right? Play is going on. The ball goes out of play. Freeze there. That may have a bigger impact. Now, there's a couple things. One, that's not coordinated across the league unless you pick a minute. The 35th minute, everybody's going to stop play. How do you coordinate that? How is everybody who's in the mode of playing the game and the competitive juices are flowing and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing to try to win a soccer match? Are they going to stop dead at 35 minutes? What if the ball is on somebody's foot lining up a shot when the clock ticks over to the 36th minute or whatever number you're choosing? Nearly impossible to pull that off, right? So again, how do you escalate in a way that is easy to coordinate, right? And obviously get some attention. Let me go to the chat. Armando says, I think the USL players need to do more protest-wise. During broadcast, the USL is doing everything they can to ignore it. Exactly. You, and I understand from a player's perspective, there's a limit to what you might want to do, right? You don't want to make a mockery of the game that you're being paid to play. Like you don't want to do something that is basically saying, oh, we don't care about the competitive nature of this game. We don't care about winning. We don't care, because that's the job you're being paid to do as a player. You're being paid to help your team win. And the fans want to win, right? The fans come to the game and buy their tickets and buy their hot dogs and their beer, and they sit down and they cheer for you because they want you to win. And if you, by virtue of your protest, upend the dynamic and show you don't care about winning, that this goes beyond, you have to, it's a very delicate line to walk, I think. They should stay still for the entire first half. All right, Mitch. I don't know about that, man. That's a lot. Roger says 5 minutes, then 10. That is an eternity. That is an eternity of awkward. Now, it would be effective. 5 minutes is going to be more effective than 1 minute. And you absolutely put a ton of pressure on a broadcast to find a way to ignore 5 minutes of stillness rather than one. I mean, I understand that feels like a natural escalation, and maybe it's even doable, but man, that is a lot of time. I mean, what? So 90 minutes of play plus some added time, but let's say 90 minutes of play. 9 minutes is 10% of the game. So you're talking about more than 5% of the game. You're going to be standing still, doing nothing. And if you go to 10 minutes, that's more than 10% of the game that you're doing nothing. And again, maybe it feels like you need to do that. Maybe it feels like you need to do this. I don't know. Again, it seems like the supporter groups are largely on the side of the players. I did see a post over on the USL Reddit of some Louisville City, I guess, supporters group. Somebody expressing hey, you're lucky you have a job. You're not good enough to go get a job somewhere else. Maybe suck it up and play. The team's got to make money. And, obviously the reason that they're offering what they're offering you is because they want to stay in business. And if they can't offer you more because that would hurt the business. And then we wouldn't have a team. That's the logic. And again, that's the tension. That's the tension here. I like this one. They could all flop at the same time, roll around the ground, holding their leg, hands over their face, etc. At least there'll be an entertainment factor. Again, that's the problem with making a mockery of it all. Maybe, the sticking point is medical insurance. Maybe there's a way to make this about medical. All of us are injured. Cover our medical expenses. Have both teams agree to a random time frame. When the ball goes out for a throw-in or goal kick, they all pause for a minute. This way they can throw off the broadcaster since there's no set time. Again, I understand that sounds good, Armando, and I'm not saying it's not maybe worth a shot. but you end up in a situation where one or two players forget, or just they're not paying attention to the clock, right? What player is in the middle of playing, contesting for a ball, trying to make something happen, and just looks up the clock and goes, oh no, I got to stop playing. This is the moment when I got to freeze. Like, I don't know if that's the best approach. And again, you're balancing attention. You're balancing what you can do to get people on your side against this issue of, well, we don't want to make a mockery of the game. Right? We still want to show that we care about winning, that we're here to compete for our teams because we want to be worthy of the jobs that we want to be paid more for. We want to be worthy of the jobs and we want health insurance to care for us with. All right, we need health insurance as people that play this sport. All right, I don't know if you guys have other ideas. Go ahead and throw them out there. Maybe the USLPA will pick up on one of these. I would be fascinated to hear what the internal discussions are at the USLPA about how to handle these things. All right, they're never going to tell us. They shouldn't. That's strategy they should not be sharing with us. But I would love to know what those discussions are like. And again, I think it's probably keep it as simple as possible. Because if you go across a certain line, it gets a little difficult to manage it. It might fall apart. If it's not coordinated, it looks like you don't have all of your players on the same page. Right? And again, the fans can do everything they can. They should do everything they can. If they are on the side of the players, they should do everything they can to chant as much as they can to prevent the broadcast from just ignoring what's going on. And again, I don't blame USL and the broadcasters for trying to ignore this. That is kind of their job in the whole balance of power here. All right, I see our guest has arrived. I got to take care of a quick tech issue. So let's go into a holding pattern. This is my signal to Jenny for just a second. I need a holding pattern to fix my tech issue. When we come back, though, well, first of all, subscribe to the channel. Become an ultra. Support the show. Support the future of Morning Kickaround so we can cover these stories on a 3 times a week basis with you. Join the ultras to become a Discord member and get access to the community that is building up over there. Incredible stuff with people talking about starting their own clubs in their own towns. We love that. You can go get your hands on a shirt, a jersey, Morning Kickaround on something emblazoned with the logo and our rooster, who I think is Franz Peckenpower at the moment. I think the name changes every so often. We probably have to, roosters don't live forever. So I'm probably going to have to replace Franz Peckenpower with somebody else at some point. Anyway, support the show through those means. When we come back, let's do this. Let's do a get to know your district and talk Fort Wayne FC with Biedenbach from Fort Wayne Footy. Stick around. All right, it's time for Get to Know Your District. I did make an attempt at your last name, Brian. I don't know if I got it right.
You nailed it.
I did. Okay, it's Biedenbach and not Biedenbach. All right.
No, you nailed it. Well done.
But look at how good your setup looks, Brian. You're shaming me over here.
Oh no.
Well, I appreciate you coming by and showing it off.
For sure.
So let's talk Fort Wayne. Let's talk about professional soccer in Fort Wayne and covering professional soccer in Fort Wayne. First of all, give everybody a sense of what Fort Wayne Footy is doing, what you guys are making.
Yeah, so we started as a solo podcast covering Fort Wayne FC last year in USL 2, knowing they're making the jump to USL League 1 this year. And so we have since then grown to, we've got a second show starting in a couple weeks to cover. So what we did, we covered Fort Wayne FC during the USL 2 season, shifted to covering local high school and club soccer in the off season. And then that really gained a lot of traction. So Fort Wayne Footy specifically is covering Fort Wayne FC in USL League 1 and all the USL League 1 content that relates to Fort Wayne. Our second show will cover all the local stuff that we were doing in the off season. So,
wow, that's great that there was an appetite and a demand for all of that. That's incredible. That's in this world of making your own thing, to have that response, I imagine, was extremely encouraging.
It was encouraging because some trouble, I guess, just trying to figure out what do we do, some stress, but I think we got a good plan, good team, and we're good to go this year.
All right, so Fort Wayne FC, building from USL League Two, which you described. Obviously, the stadium is a major part of the story for Fort Wayne
Hmm.
FC, and now in the professional ranks. I remember going to a USL. They had an event down in Tampa. I don't remember what they called it. It was like their annual general meetings, but they had media there, so I was part of like covering. They brought us down, and I was covering it for the radio and making things. And I remember running into DeMarcus Beasley in the bar during the happy hour that you do at these conventions and these events, and having a conversation with him about this. I mean, obviously, this is the fruition of a plan that has been in the works for a while. Tell us the story of being local and being a soccer fan and watching this happen.
Yeah, 2020, the team was announced. They were supposed to start then, and 2021, I believe they got their first start in USL two, and so it was exciting. There was a lot of people in Fort Wayne that are like, "What is this? We're not sure. Is this a professional team? Is this an amateur team?" And so the fan base was small, continued to grow, but with DeMarcus Beasley, as you said, behind this, there's a lot of people that thought, okay, something's gonna come of this with a name like DeMarcus Beasley behind it. In the last couple of years, ownership changed over. Beasley's still a part of it, and either a lot of new energy and new vision, I guess, came into play with this new ownership group moving forward. And so news started rolling out that we're moving to the professional ranks. This was always the plan from the beginning, and we're actually going to make it happen. There's a new stadium coming, and so the swell of fandom has been exciting to watch. So everything from the product on the field that's been really successful in USL two, winning the division the last 3 seasons, giving up fewest number of goals, having one of the best records over the last couple seasons in USL two, really has given this fan base something to get excited about. And then to see the stadium going up, driving past it every day, in and out on my way to work, it's looking like a stadium now. When, just a couple weeks ago, people were like, is that Top Golf? Like, what's going in over there on the side of the highway there? So it has been a lot of fun to see the energy, the vision, and see all of that begin to come to fruition here this season in USL one.
So that part of it, sort of educating a local fan base or understanding what is there to maybe tap into. So I guess what I'm curious about is you mentioned, like, did people, oh, is this pro? Is this not? Obviously, USL League Two is not, and we've heard from, I think, professional club owners that sometimes league doesn't matter, but there is a difference, obviously, schedule wise,
Correct.
most definitely, between USL League Two and USL League One, and that's a big leap. So the fan base was always there, or this was a process?
Yeah, I think there was a small fan base, but growing fan base in USL League Two. The Three Rivers Regiment was our supporter group. We're getting the word out, getting behind players, getting more and more supporters there at the stadium. There's two big clubs here, youth clubs, and so they were always doing things with players to get the walkouts there before kickoff, and youth night, wear your jerseys, wear your kits, those sorts of things that they were doing to get fans to the stadium. And so it was continuing to grow. Now Fort Wayne is a small city, and so there's not the large city feel of this club, but it does have a really local feel. So for those that are tied into the soccer community, which is growing pretty quickly here in Fort Wayne, with like I said, two clubs continuing to grow. One club just was announced as MLS Next Academy team. And so there's a lot of, I don't know, soccer people in Fort Wayne. It's how do you convert soccer players and soccer families to professional soccer fans? I think that's the stage that we're in right now.
So 2 matches into the USL League One season, right?
We played 2 so far.
And how do you feel about, before we get to what the stadium experience will be like, and that's the next step. How do you feel about how it started?
Yeah, 0-1-1. We've got 2 goals on the board, 4 goals given up. And first game down in Naples, didn't know what to expect. This is a really young team. This is a team that I think maybe the youngest in USL League One, potentially, with a 23-year-old average, 22 and a half, 23-year-old average age of players. So didn't really know what to expect, but got a lot of firepower on this team. I wrote an article a few weeks ago called "This Team's a Powder Keg of Potential." Like, there's so many goals that could be scored with, the NAIA Player of the Year and Jack Thomas last year scoring 20 goals for Shreveport in NAIA. We've got 20 goals between Lillian Recall and Clarence Awudor as teammates at Central Florida. So a lot of potential in this team. And so when I saw them in Naples, a lot of exciting play. And so that game actually is a marker for me, not just because it's the first game, but because the product that Naples has put out on the field so far this year, winning games consistently in the way that they are. Fort Wayne being on the front foot the first part of both of those halves, and putting it to Naples, a team that's in first place right now as a brand new team, speaks louder to me now 3 weeks into the season than it did even then. And so I just think the more and more they play together, that finishing touch is always the last thing I think that comes as a team develops, and they are so close to finishing that right now. So it's going to be an exciting team.
All right, so a couple of trips to Florida, right?
That's correct.
Which might be, I guess, if you're in the Midwest, and I mean, the temperature's broken here on the East Coast. I don't know what it's like in Fort Wayne right now, Brian.
It's, it's 15 degrees one day and it's 80 degrees the next day right now.
Okay, you're going through the same thing we are then. Okay, I mean, but still, trips to Florida, not too. I mean, I don't know about travel right now. And okay, so Cosmos coming up on Saturday in their little joint in northern Jersey, and then what's after that? When do we get to see Fort Wayne FC play in their own building in front of their home fans to see what the fruition of this move to pro actually delivers?
Yeah, so a lot of questions in Fort Wayne about that right now. Stadium is not complete, but we're being told May 2nd is the date that it's the home opener is scheduled. And we've heard nothing different from the front office. I just had a conversation yesterday and said workers are working around the clock. And I drove past at 10 o'clock the other night on my way to my son's indoor match, and there were still lights on. There were still workers out working on that. So May 2nd is the target date. As of now, we've not heard anything different.
Okay. And I mean, look, probably no reason not to trust the club on that front, but it's got to make you nervous. You got to be sweating bullets.
I mean, for sure. Like, you drive by and you see, okay, seats are starting to go in, but there's still sections of the stadium you can see through. And, I think the scare with Corpus Christi kind of set off some alarms, as Corpus Christi is now moving out of their stadium's not going to be done. So they'll be playing in the local high school stadium. I think the issue here in Fort Wayne is they've sold enough tickets that they can't go anywhere else in a stadium here in town. And so they're really pushing. I believe it will get done, but there are, I'll be honest, a lot of questions around town of, is that really going to happen in this original timeline?
I guess, obviously for you and for the most committed fans in Fort Wayne, okay, we deal with what this is. This is, we're going to give a lot of leeway to the club to figure it out. But, there is that saying, you only get one chance to make a first impression, Brian. And if there are people who are like, I'm so excited to go see Fort Wayne FC in their home debut as a professional soccer club, and it's a womp situation because there's no concessions, or half the bathrooms don't work, or there's empty parts of the stadium, that's not great.
No. And I 100% agree with that. I do think, though, this ownership group and this club has done things the right way to this point, as far as not over promising, but over delivering in some ways. And so I do think whatever it looks like on May 2nd is going to be a great experience. I have no doubt about that. But yeah, there is a lot of questions swirling around that.
All right. So, and I talk about this all the time. This is why I would give leeway to the club, not being from Fort Wayne, obviously, and just watching this as this soccer media guy has been around judging people for the last 2 decades. what I always say is the thing that takes American soccer from just being this, well, we do it and we start clubs and we're never really sure how long they're going to last and things like that, to actual presence in the community and part of the culture and part of the civic
Yeah.
identity is a building that people can point to and go, that's where my team plays, or that's where the
Mhm.
local team plays. Because otherwise you're kind of just you're a ghost, right? You kind of don't exist because you're borrowing somebody else's facility or playing in a high school joint. So I give full credit to Fort Wayne FC for getting to this point to build this stadium. I mean, I don't I hope I'm not overstating this, Brian.
No, no, absolutely not. I think it was the right move. It was a move that needed to be made for this club. And again, the fan base, the acknowledgement of, hey, we've got a pro team. What does it look like? Even casuals that aren't aware of what's happening see the stadium and go, that's interesting. I think I might go to a game there. Now, to your point earlier about what's it going to look like in that opening day, like there's some plans that we have in the works, like with Fort Wayne Footy, with our supporters group, Three Rivers Regiment, that we're like, things are on hold right now until we get final approval to move forward. We talked about doing a show with Rob, your co-host, coming down potentially on that day, and so doing some other things. But we've got some plans that are tentative, but there's we're a little nervous to move forward to put a lot of investment in that so far.
Well, yeah, I imagine. I mean, you can't. That's the worst. It's like, we want to do all this stuff, but we it's not really even up to us. I guess is kind of where it's at. I mean, look, we're crossing fingers. We're all hopeful. Let's also talk about your view on what this club's ceiling is right now.
Sure.
What, 9,200 seats in the new stadium?
That's correct.
So a reasonable amount of seats. We're not talking about a crazy big building that you got to fill up every week. Hopefully the club can draw, can fill the building up, and it's not 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. Is it with pro rel coming in the USL, presumably with different stadium requirements if you go to the top level, at least as written by US Soccer at the moment? Is this a kind of thing where you imagine they want to be a first division USL club? They're going to have to find a way to add, what is that, 6,000 seats to make it work? Is that something in Fort Wayne FC's future?
I believe they have ambition to be there as an ownership group and as a front office. I do believe they have the ambition, and they're going to do everything they can from their perspective to move in that direction. Now, the stadium holds 9,200 people. The one end of the stadium, it's built a bit like a horseshoe. One end of the stadium has the long scoreboard there. The standing room only now. So I imagine if they get promoted, eventually they'll round out the stadium on that end, put the extra 6,000 seats in that they need to do. I think the bigger question is in these first several years in lower division USL 1, potentially move into USL Championship, like do we have the potential to fill a 9,000 seat stadium consistently? I think there will be matches where we will, but the last year, I think with average attendance was 1,500 or 1,600. Now we played at a local college football stadium that didn't have a lot of seats. And so it felt full at 1,500, 1,600 fans there. That's a big jump from 1,600 even to 9,200. And so I think season ticket sales have gone well. And, they're selling, 6-pack tickets and 3-pack tickets in May just to, get people there in the stadium to see it early on. And I think once people get there, there will be, and they have that experience, it will continue to grow. For me, it's that, can we get people in the stadium early to fill it out? And I think Fort Wayne has the potential to fill it. But to me, again, that's the big question is, will it?
So, okay. I mean, this is such a weird thing for American sports fans to think about because, we do have a little bit of a parallel with college sports. And we know that depending on where you are in the country and what sport we're talking about, it's no problem filling up a building to watch American football, to watch basketball. You get, 10, 15, 20,000, depending on the arena. So but we don't really do this in professional sports. I know there's minor league. I'm sure there's a minor league baseball team in Fort Wayne, right? I'm sure there's other minor league sports in Fort Wayne, but how different is the connection for you and for soccer fans? And how do you explain that to non-soccer fans that, hey, this isn't like single A baseball. This is something different? Do you have those conversations?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit we do for sure. My circle is pretty, you know, I run in soccer circles, so there's a lot of people that know
who's not a soccer fan.
yeah, you know,
like
you know the
Oh, yeah.
game, you know what it is, but there are a lot of people that are asking that question, like, what is this? Is this like who are they connected with? Whatever. But again, most people in Fort Wayne know the name DeMarcus Beasley, and so you know the name DeMarcus Beasley. You associate it with soccer, and you associate it with soccer greatness, really, and success. And so when his name is put to something, people will, at least around here, believe in what's happening. Now, again, the question of, you know, how do we fill the stadium? How do we, you know, what is this team? Why would I go? I think that's another question, is why would I go see this? I'm not really a soccer fan. So you go to minor league baseball because that's just kind of what you've done in the summers for years, right? You go to Comets hockey because Comets have been around for a long, long time. Like, what's going to get my attention on the soccer field? And I think, honestly, again, time will tell when they get into the stadium one time, see the product on the field. I think that's what it's going to take to get casual fans in Fort Wayne excited about what's happening, because there really is not a lot of history, unless you went to one game last summer in USL 2. You know, we've been around for, you know, the last 5 years or so. But if you've got no connection, somebody once told me, Jason, like, when you start seeing hockey fans, when you start seeing the Comet hockey fans who are diehards start to show up at the stadium, you know you've made the transition.
Okay, I like that as a bellwether for Fort Wayne FC. All right, so again, started life in USL League One, a little bit of mixed bag. Results aren't where you want them yet, but it's a young team. We're going to see it grow, and we're going to get that May 2nd grand opening of the Fort Wayne FC Park, hopefully full to the rafters. With what's autumn gold? The chat is having a conversation about your colors, Brian.
That is
autumn
gold and black. Some would call it orange, maybe yellowish. Autumn gold is official color.
Were you 100% on board with the rebrand? Were you?
To be honest, it grew on me, but at the time, Jason, I got to tell you this. I am a fan of teams that wear orange and black and orange and blue. And all of our rival teams wear gold and black. So Columbus Crew, Pittsburgh Steelers, those are all my rival teams. And so for me to wear a gold and black was a little hard at first.
All right.
But it's grown on me. It's grown on. We've rebranded our podcast to match the team.
Had to, right? All right, Brian, tell people where to get everything you're doing at Fort Wayne Footy.
Yeah, we're on YouTube. We're on all the socials, just at Fort Wayne Footy. We stream live currently on Sunday nights for this show. In April, we're bumping to Monday night for Fort Wayne Footy. And our new show, the 260 Soccer Show, covering all the other local stuff beyond Fort Wayne FC, will take that Sunday night spot. But Fort Wayne Footy, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube are where we're most active, but we're around everywhere.
Okay, there you go. Brian Biedenbach on the show talking Fort Wayne Footy. Brian, thank you so much for coming by.
For sure. Thanks, Jason.
All right, Brian on the show, giving us a local view. Speaking of local lower division soccer, MLS Next Pro's out there making moves. So when we come back here on Morning Kickaround, let's do a little soccer under construction and check in on Grand Rapids. All right, back on Morning Kickaround here, talking soccer under construction. A little check-in on AC Grand Rapids, which is not entering the USL, even though we spent a lot of time talking about USL on this program. This is an MLS Next Pro team there in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Athletic Club. I get a little bit annoyed by clubs who want to go athletic club when you're just playing soccer. Like, why are you an athletic club? Are you a gym? Can I join for what, $33 a month? Do I get an an introduction period? What happens if I cancel? Am I on the hook? Anyway, they're not a gym. They're not an athletic club who plays other sports. They're just a soccer team, and they're entering MLS Next Pro. And they posted to their Instagram this very interesting little bit. I'm going to have the sound up here for a second. It's a little bit jarring, but let's see what we got here. Here is. Okay, so there's lots of drums there. I'm going to mute that now, but that's the video that AC Grand Rapids has posted to their Instagram account as part of a whatever, I don't know, a gallery of images. As you can see, what they've got is the rendering of Amway Stadium. This is going to be called Amway Stadium because, yeah, reasons, Grand Rapids reasons. And on the billboard next to the rendered stadium is this video that is a rendered time lapse of the construction of the stadium. So let's continue this without the music, without the jarring drum line there. So we've got rafters going up, and it's that one single crane in the middle of the field just for some reason. Okay. Is that what is that? Is that a crane? All right. Anyway, more rafters going up, covering the rafters with the roof. The scoreboard's there. Here comes the field, filling in the space. That's what they're going to play on. And then you get the wider view, and that's basically it. All right. So this does not give us a real sense of what the finished product is going to look like because it's rendered, right? There's not the detail here. This doesn't look real. After what we just saw with, or what we just talked about with Fort Wayne FC, and I didn't put up a picture of their stadium, but you can go find renderings on their website. I don't know. I was looking for images of the building under construction because, again, they are a month and a couple weeks, so 6 weeks away from opening that building, or not even that, 7 weeks away, or 5 weeks away from opening that building there in Fort Wayne. Grand Rapids is posting renderings, and their building does not have 3 covered ends or 3 covered sides. It has 2 covered sides, and then the scoreboard end and all of that. We're going to see how this plays out because certainly I can understand a lot of soccer fans in Grand Rapids who would say, or in other markets, other places around the country that are looking to go pro and are choosing MLS Next Pro over USL. I could understand them saying, what are we doing here? Why are we playing in what is essentially a glorified reserve league, right? Why are we playing in a developmental league instead of playing in what it might be viewed by some people, and obviously USL has its flaws, as a truly competitive league with senior professionals and it's about winning. It's not about developing players at all. And remember, I think it was last week, we had the quotes from Ali Curtis, who went on the Soccer Business, and he said they want to get to 50 teams in MLS Next Pro. And I don't remember what the timeline was on that. He said this to Simon Evans at the Soccer Business. I don't remember what the timeline was. We should check on that. Right now, there are 30 teams in MLS Next Pro, and only a handful of them are independent. So you have Connecticut United, that is independent, and I think their stadium plan just went belly up, right? So Connecticut United wanted to build a stadium. That has gone belly up. Don't know what their plan is for that. Carolina Core in High Point, North Carolina, they play in a 4,500 seat baseball stadium, minor league baseball stadium. Chattanooga FC, who we've talked about a lot. Obviously, that is a legacy USL league, NPSL team that went pro and is now trying to establish themselves with competition in town from an MLS, from a USL team in the Chattanooga Red Wolves, right? And again, we told the story about Chattanooga FC. It definitely feels as though, for lack of a better way of framing it, Chattanooga FC was kind of forced into MLS Next Pro because of what USL did by bringing in a carpet-bagging ownership group to launch Chattanooga Red Wolves in town because they couldn't get their hands on Chattanooga FC. Chattanooga FC didn't want to be part of that. For whatever reason, they are now an MLS Next Pro team. Out west, I don't think you have a single independent team in MLS Next Pro out west. Every single one of those teams is connected to an MLS team, is a reserve team, a team 2 of an MLS team. You've got Jacksonville Armada, right, who is set to play next year. We've talked about their stadium plan that doesn't seem to be moving anywhere. It's in Jacksonville as opposed to Sporting Jacks, which is planning this multi-use kind of bigger plan, incredible. We showed those images, I think, last week or 2 weeks ago, which Sporting Jacks, a USL team, Jacksonville Armada, formerly of the NASL, reconstituted as an amateur team, now trying to go pro again and do it in MLS Next Pro. You have Forest City Cleveland, which we talked about their unveiled branding just last week with the tree with 12 leaves because it's 11 and then the supporters. Anyway, I don't mind that branding, but some of you said it does look like an apartment complex branding. It kind of does. AC Grand Rapids, Golden City. This is what I think. So this is a team that's set to launch next year. And we need to check in on Golden City because I don't think they have a permanent logo. They don't have a branding yet. They are planning to play in Kezar Stadium, which is a historic stadium in San Francisco, like literally in San Francisco. Capacity 10,000 at Kezar Stadium. It is a track stadium, right? It is a high school football with a track around its stadium. It is basically like a city football stadium for the high schools, right? They might play a city championship game there, that kind of thing. I don't know if they do. Then you have the Island FC out of Long Island, New York, that is going to be playing in Uniondale. I think we've talked about this a little bit. I have seen, the only thing I've seen from the Island is the announcement with Hallie Curtis on hand. They just called themselves the Island. And then I believe I saw some renderings. They are planning to build a 2,500 seat stadium, expandable to 5,000 as momentum builds. That's how they say it. As momentum builds, they're in Uniondale, the Mitchell Athletic Complex. I've seen some, I don't see them here, and maybe they've taken them down after they were probably shamed over them, but I've seen some images that were clearly AI created that looked absolutely ridiculous. I don't know that I have high hopes right now for the Island, but we shall see. I don't know. Look, this is the soccer wars part of this. And maybe Grand Rapids wasn't going to get another team unless it was in MLS Next Pro. And I suppose some pro soccer is better than no pro soccer. But I don't love the idea of these two organizations splitting up these markets or perhaps potentially even challenging each other in these markets, right? So the Cleveland's a good example of this. We now have Forest City Cleveland set to play in MLS Next Pro, and they've got a stadium plan out. I can't remember the location exactly, but they've got a stadium plan, and they were going potentially to be challenged in town by a USL team that had their own stadium plan, I believe, on the campus of Cleveland State, that has now gone belly up, potentially. So, again, I guess if you are a Grand Rapids soccer fan and you just want some soccer, all right, here you go. Here's some pro soccer for you, right? Not a team that won't be limited to playing 7 games in the summer, and that's it. A team that will be giving you a little bit more. They're going to build their own stadium, and yet most of their games are going to be playing against an MLS team's reserves, an MLS team's youth players coming up through the ranks to try to become senior level professionals. I think it's tough as an American soccer fan because I don't want to, like, beggars and choosers, that kind of thing, right? Like, are we in a place where we can say, man, this is not good enough because we didn't used to have any of this? Or is it just just take it as it comes? All right, clarification on Connecticut. Yeah, I think I tried to apply this. The team exists, but the stadium plan is not happening that they were intending to build. Wasn't that site really bad environmentally, and they were going to have to remediate a ton of that? Anyway, that's the update on Grand Rapids. Kind of interesting pictures, but nothing that I'm going to get too excited about quite yet. All right, that's going to do it for Morning Kickaround on a Monday, a Robless show. Go get your hoodless sweatshirt to honor Robless shows over on the store page, Fourth Wall Morning Kickaround. Look for that. You can obviously buy your shirt, pre-order your first ever MK Ultra jersey, which is available there. I believe we made that link public, so you don't have to be an Ultra to get your hands on one. You might be cosplaying a bit because it does say MKU on it, but that's up to you. I'll let you figure that out. Reasonable price point on the jersey, I think, right? Subscribe to the channel. That's number one. That doesn't cost you anything. You're already here on YouTube. You're already watching videos all the time. Subscribe to the channel. Let's get those numbers up. Also, like the video. I think that helps people find it, helps us get out there into the algorithm. If you do want to become an Ultra, it's only a couple bucks a month. You get access to the Discord. You get access to bonus content and all kinds of stuff that we're planning here on Morning Kickaround. We do have a Ko-Fi page or Coffee or whatever you want to say. You can also support us there. If you don't want to sign up for a monthly contribution, this is a one-time possibility for you. I'll go ahead and promote some of the stuff I'm doing elsewhere. I had the Best Soccer Show. That remains a thing. Best Soccer Show on Patreon. If you want to become a Patreon member of that channel or that show, that is mostly U.S. men's national team focused. So if you want to hear me talk about the U.S. men's national team and maybe MLS, the Best Soccer Show is your jam. Then also the Soccer Eagle newsletter, which is where I'm writing stuff. You can find that just by typing in Jason Davis Soccer Eagle into your Google machine. It's on Ghost. Try to post twice a week these days. Should have something up for you tomorrow with my ramblings about American soccer. I don't think I'm forgetting anything. I think that's pretty much all we've got. Rob will be back on Wednesday. Oh, yeah, I also do a radio show on Sirius XM. If you want to hear me talk to Eric Winalda, it's actually at 4 o'clock Eastern. So Detroit, I think you're in Eastern, right? So it's 4 o'clock Eastern today on Sirius XM FC channel 157 if you have Sirius. If you have a rental car or you just bought a car or you want to pay for Sirius XM, go listen to WTF on Sirius XM and hear me talk about mostly European soccer, oddly enough. There's some MLS in there too, but it's a lot in the national team, but it's mostly about European soccer. I think we're going to be talking about the League Cup final today on that show and other things that happen in the Premier League. All right. Thank you very much for watching Morning Kickaround. Thank you for supporting the show. And until next time, enjoy your soccer.